I'm just going to do a little bit, mostly for local. The stream will kick in and people complain why they're hearing this in part of the broadcast. Thanks everybody very much for being here. Logistics, just to quickly run through. The toilets are on the other side of the atrium. Through the door, turn left. The fire exit is the front door that you came through. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the sirens go off, we'll need to leave. The Wi-Fi is Visit Ed. It'll ask you for some way to send a PIN code. It's completely legit. They're just verifying that it's not spam, so text message, email, whatever you like to choose is pretty good internet actually, so feel free to use. And welcome everybody online. We'll get started in just a second. We'll try and take questions throughout the day, but for the sake of coordinating multiple things, generally we'll leave them to the end of each segment and try and do a bit of a Q&A. Broadly sticking to the schedule that we've got here. I think that we're going to have gaps between each of the talks, deal with any AV issues that occur, such as the pile that we have just been dealing with over lunch. And at the end of the day, we've got an opportunity to hang out. We've got some AMA time. We can go through code or ideas, and we'll head to 56 North later on. Sorry if everybody online is really upset about that. I know you can't join us. Next time you could be here or wherever we are, and we can all hang out together, but we can send virtual pints or drinks of your choice on the wires, or just go and fix one from your fridge and enjoy it whilst we're talking. If everything's looking good, I think we'll just get going. Amazing. Welcome everybody, thanks so much for being here at, I think, the third in-person hybrid version of FyneConf. I've actually forgotten how many years we've done this, but it's really exciting to pull together lots of talks and ideas from around the community and to share it with people online, in person, and in the archive for years to come. So thanks everybody for contributing along the way. I know you couldn't all be here in person, but we'll hear from everyone. If you're here, if you're watching us online, if you've not heard of the Fyne project, or if you've just heard a little and you're not too sure what's going on, I just wanted to do a very quick bit about what we're about. I'm guessing that probably what's on your mind is, I just want to build an app. Pretty common rallying call. But what does that even mean? Do you want to build it for your phone? Apple makes some good ones. Other manufacturers are available. It seems to be the default for an app. But of course, maybe it's for a tablet, something that you're wanting to carry around with you, larger form factor, or perhaps it's used around your workplace. Let's not forget, of course, that native software is something that's important to install on your computer as well, your laptop that you're lugging around, or the desktop that's beautifully adorning your workspace at home, potentially collecting dust, or maybe it's just a gaming rig. But nonetheless, it's all something that native applications could be installed on. But also, maybe you're looking at smaller or industrial setups. You've got a custom device. You want to manage software for that. Maybe it is actually a gaming platform, but you want to have some other software on there. Steam Deck, again, other supplies are available. This one truly is running a Fyne game, and there was some Fyne-based medical software on that embedded touchscreen device. Or maybe you're actually going off the deep end, you're looking at e-ink displays or tiny little embedded devices, hardware with 5 buttons and a 2-inch display. There are so many different platforms that you could be building applications for. They all have different languages, there's different tools, and there's a lot of difference in the support available for creating things. Fragmentation, lots of overspend and waste. And I truly believe that none of the users of these devices really care. It's just a computer running software, so why does any of this matter? Shouldn't this all just work? If there was, in fact, a universal solution to something along these lines, apologies for the cheese, I just love this, and like theme parks, the happiest place in the world. Why can't building software also be just that simple, straightforward, and easy to get into? If this tooling and technology could be used, it would be just fine.
Hey.
we could all be collaborating on the same code bases, distributing to all of the different devices that we've got. No loss in productivity, no expensive overhead. Businesses, users, and software developers would all be benefiting. And so this is indeed where the Fyne toolkit came from. And the vision, as it is on our website, remains to be the best toolkit for easily developing beautiful native graphical applications for desktop, mobile, and beyond. And of course, beyond means more and more over time. And I've said this a lot. It's on the website, it's what we tell everybody. But I think fundamentally it's a little bit more. We are fixing application development for everyone, forever. These applications, they write once, they build for all devices, it's just working, there's no library, there's no setup. It's modern tooling, modern techniques that's just going to work. An amazing community of people with excellent support following good engineering practices. This is the way it should be. And this is what we're gathering to talk about, I feel. Welcome to FyneConf 2025. We have already had this morning a really good session of contributor discussions and planning. And we have an afternoon of presentations from around the community, many of whom could be here today and some who have dialed in and recorded in advance. Later on, there'll be an Ask Me Anything, there'll be a session to chat with a number of the team who are here, online or in person, or the other way around, in person or online. Please do ask questions as we go. For the people on YouTube, feel free to type them in through the sessions, and we'll answer those questions after each of those segments, and hopefully we can cover anything. But don't forget, if you missed that, we'll be online later, we'll be in person down the road afterwards as well, so plenty of opportunities to ask. Today wouldn't be possible with the support of more people than just the speakers as well. Our t-shirts and the cost of bringing people here today has been sponsored by our amazing community sponsors, people who love the project and want to help us do better. Partly the way that we do better is by coming together in this way. I can't thank everyone, unfortunately, it's a very long list, fortunately, but you can find them at fyne.io/sponsor. And the venue, the food and the drinks today and refreshments later on are sponsored by Attrix AI, which is the business that I've recently founded. And as we're sponsoring, I'm going to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about that as well. So Attrix AI is a universal app studio. It's drag and drop visual application creation with artificial intelligence to help people who are less technical get involved. There's a simple screenshot there that shows how the visual creation can be alongside code and help you to learn what is happening. The technology is all built on Fyne. Everything that you see on screen there has been created with the toolkit, and we're currently in open testing. You can download it and try it out from attrix.ai is our website, and there's lots of functionality for people who are wanting to get a little bit more into their business. I think that is, however, enough of an intro from the sponsors and why we're here. Let me just get on with the first presentation of the afternoon, building better apps everywhere. It's an opportunity to look at what's happening around the project and what's changed since last time. The thing that has struck me in the last few months, going to conferences and meeting people, is that the popularity of the project seems to be reaching another level, which is really exciting. We have over 27,000 stars on GitHub, which I just love. They're very shiny, and lots of them is better. It puts it very far up there on, how it might compare to other projects. The thing that I find really interesting is that what this means is that we're now in the top 1,000 open source projects of all time, assuming that they're hosted on GitHub, and I know not everything is, but most have a mirror or a presence there, so pretty much is representative. And we got there in just 7 years of development, which for a project of this size is not bad. So that's, I think, something worth celebrating. Another really cool thing is that we're seeing courses, tutorials, and material being created by people around the world and distributed on their own. It's not just put together by the community or the developers here, but people off their own back. And we have had people doing video tutorials in multiple different languages across multiple platforms. And I now believe that the project has been represented in some way at all major Go conferences as well. I've been lucky to go to many of them. Members of the community have presented. And also, folk have started to reach out to me and say, oh my goodness, I love that presentation about Go at this place that I went to. And I'd had to say, oh, well, I mean, I'm flattered. But actually, that was somebody else. You know, I'll put you in touch with who pulled that talk together. So it's not just necessarily stuff that we're putting together and taking out there, which I think shows that people not only are using this, but are excited about it and wanting to tell their friends and colleagues. Yeah, so over the last year, we've had an ever-expanding community, which is very exciting. We've got 2 new core contributors over that time. Thanks very much, Simon, who's here, and we'll hear from him a little bit more later. He jumped on board at the last conference that we held in Berlin, although he tells me that was his plan all along, and you know, it was just really nice to meet people before he committed. So we're going to hear more about the work that he's been doing. We've also welcomed Eli very recently from the US, who has been bringing really amazing optimizations at the graphical level and additions that just make this stuff so much more polished than it was before, which I think is actually saying something, but particularly on mobile, it's made the difference from good to actually really great. There's interest from around the globe as well. There's a lot happening. One thing that I found really interesting was I was in San Francisco and I was doing a little bit of work over there, and I looked up at the skyline, as one probably should do in big cities, to see a little bit more than just the pavement in front. And I saw a massive billboard for a company that was using Fyne internally for a piece of their software. I can't share who or what they were doing, unfortunately, but nonetheless, they were out there. This is a company that you'd recognize as well, but it was really warming to know that they're doing what they are doing really big and bold with the technology that we've made available. In a similar vein, there's a lot of cool production apps. I think a number of us working in the team have collaborated with other companies to deliver something, but we're in a place where they're doing it internally, they're doing it privately, and we're not allowed to shout about what the end results are at this point. But more case studies to come, I really hope. And at the Gopher Con recently, I had a fantastic conversation where a number of the team from Google came and asked a little bit more about the project, were curious about what could be done, how they could find out more, and what the opportunities were for them to support what we were doing and to work together. So it's pretty interesting to see what they might be thinking about, and we're going to look at that discussion. And I understand that they're starting to look at app creation as a use case for Go, which actually is really big, because for the longest time it's been a server language for systems programming, and that's about it. But there's an update coming to the website and other places of documentation that illustrate more varied things that you can do, and we're definitely up there as an example of some really cool stuff that's possible. The last thing I wanted to say about growing the community is that we know the importance of everything that's happening, and we want to do more to give back. So in terms of sponsorship, we're starting to engage with the projects that we really depend upon to contribute a percentage of the sponsorship income that we have to those projects, so that the entire ecosystem continues to grow. It is only once we have income above a certain point, because below that it just becomes, unfortunately, a little bit too much work to juggle those. And at the moment, we're just below it. So we're always looking for more sponsorship, but I'll touch on that later. So that's community and the growing project, but I also wanted to talk about what is new in terms of functionality. We've had 2 big releases, 2.6 and 2.7, which has delivered a lot of new functionality. A shout out to Sebastian, who has contributed both the polygon, which is allowing us to do many-sided shapes on the screen, but also the arc primitives to our canvas package. Some really nice examples of what could be created with those new types in the API. And that's under final testing at the moment, will be released in a couple of weeks' time. We also introduced square, which doesn't sound quite so fundamentally exciting because we had rectangle already. And in fact, that's a function of rectangle.aspect. Your rectangle could be stuck to a side, a certain aspect ratio. Why would that be useful? Well, we've got images that can be contained in a space, and now you can draw a frame around them, for example, with a rectangle at the same aspect ratio. So we're removing lots of math and complicated code from applications wherever possible. You can now have an image cover the space, a new image fill type cover, which means it's going to crop and throw away bits that aren't possible to fit in. And that could be really useful when you're packing lots of information into specifically smaller areas where you want the text to flow a particular way and you want the important part of an image to appear. We have added the ability to make pill rectangles. I don't know if that's what the words are, but with a maximum radius constant, you can have the corners automatically make a half circle. Again, taking away the maths of managing different radiuses as things resize. And corners added to images as well, and also you can control corners of rectangles independently if that's helpful to you. We have the navigation container. Thanks very much, Simon, for that. That's coming in. You can see it there. Helpful to put items onto a stack of navigation and go backwards and forwards through it. And a clip container, which I've not drawn because it literally cuts things out and focuses on a certain area, which people have been asking for. And that just helps constrain to sub-elements of your UI. There's a whole bunch of interesting other APIs around scrolling and the inner window as well. Lots of additional APIs have been added to existing containers, but also to widgets. We've got the new calendar and date entry widgets. They came from, or at least the calendar came from FyneX. It was promoted up, so that's nice to see. And the partial check for a three-state check, pretty useful. One that people have been clamoring for, though, strangely, was a selectable label. Not an entry, but static text that you could drag and copy out of. And then in the vicinity of more APIs, we've got cursor handling around the entry, so, different sizes for your labels. Again, it's we're going for consistency and a good layout by default, so that goes through the theming system, but it's more configurable than it was before. Your list can start from a different number in rich text, and we've also updated the validation a little, so if you want to pre-populate values, you can make sure that the response for those is appearing before the user has interacted, which can help for more complicated flows. The big thing, however, that's happened in the last year is that we did a lot of work on enhancing concurrency in applications, and this has had the fantastic side effect of an incredible increase in the performance of complex code. Any app should get a 2 to 3 times speed up, but we had some example apps where it was showing 12,000 time speed up. So depending on how you've got concurrency, how it's working, this could be really substantial. The reason to do it, though, is eliminating race conditions. We tried to handle concurrency for people in a way they didn't have to care, realized that there was limitations to that approach, and so now it is possible for the default to be race-free, and if you want to do multiple things in concurrency, then we have an API that makes it safe completely. So the race detectors and all of the tooling likes the application now. It helps to simplify custom widgets. The event management behavior is very straightforward by default, and there's a single way to add that concurrency if you need to. And the probability is that for most people building out their first few applications, you don't need to know. It's just going to work better and faster and safer than it did before. For people who do need to know, if you're doing background processing, we've introduced 2 new APIs, Fyne.do, which will go execute that code safely at some point soon, and Fyne.do and wait, which says execute that code right now and tell me or return when you're done. These are only needed if you're executing graphical code, front-end updates from a background process, and I have a quick example of that here. This code is a little clock. We have the initial time set, and we insert that into a label, and that's your setup, your basic display. And then we do a new go function. So this is going to run that code in the background constantly. We have a ticker that every 1 second is going to execute the inner code. We get the new time by formatting time with the same constant. And then the one place where the code in your app might have changed is here, Fyne.do, and pass the function that is out.setText. And that is just going to mean that with all of the different things happening in your application, the graphical update is going to happen completely safely. No data sharing issues. And as a result, it also means that it's removing possibility of potential graphical glitches. We didn't see them very much, but there was a number of really hard to reproduce bugs that automatically got solved when we made this migration. Speaking of migrations, this is a fairly big change. We wanted to allow people to opt into it over time. It's the default for a new project, but it's not something necessarily that you want to turn on as soon as you upgrade. So we were inspired by Go's metadata approach to say, I want to opt into new functionality. Using the FyneApp.toml, we've added a new section called migrations, and each time there is a migration like this, there will be a field that you could turn it on by saying equals true. In this case, Fyne.do. Fyne.do in that string. The expectation is that these will all be turned on over time. Of course, there's the potential that that might not be the case, but we're working on the workflow that you can turn it on yourself, do some local testing, and then know that you're set up for the turning on overall. For the specifically migration of this new threading model, you can actually test it locally with a pattern that we've set up so that migrated and then the name of the migration can be passed into your application to verify everything is working as a local developer. And then you can set the flag in your build metadata so that it's set true for everybody who downloads your app source code. Of course, it will be turned on by that parameter or that parameter if you compile it for distribution. In 2.8, which is not the release we're preparing right now, but the next one down the road, the warnings if you're not using this correctly are going to become stronger. If you launch the application and it's not been migrated, we're going to say you should be doing something about this because we do want to push people to this more safe, faster place. And likely in 2.9, this will be turned on by default. And in that case, if you had what could have been deemed unsafe code before, you may start to see crashes occur because we're going to remove the guardrails. The reason for that being, to make this migration possible, we have a lot of code in place that checks if something is safe and does a bit of work to make it safe if it's not. That actually slows things down. So if you don't migrate, it's possible you'll see a slight performance degradation, but once you've done it, it's going to be absolutely flying. And the last big addition in between these times is new tiny places where you can be using Fyne. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of TinyGo. It came up at least 3 times in the discussions this morning. You may know of Tamago. It's a smaller project, but it's really interesting at this time. It has been part of a discussion around the Go proposals about supporting the no OS version of Go OS. Now, if that doesn't mean anything, that's fine. But Go compiles to all these different devices just completely out of the box. But what if you don't want to specify a particular device? If you want it on an embedded or a custom piece of hardware, you need to understand or explain to the compiler that there's nothing built in, you can't rely on anything. And that's where the Tamago project has come from as well. It builds binaries that you can drop onto hardware. It doesn't need an operating system. It doesn't need any kind of runtime at all. This has been really interesting to think what could native apps do that other systems for deploying applications can't. And so we have added a new embedded driver. Previously, it had been desktop, mobile, web, essentially, with some test driver harnesses as well. The new embedded one allows you more control about how the application works. You're expected to define how a rendered frame is displayed on the device. You're probably pushing pixels to an I/O port or something like that. And then you'll define how events are sent into the application and provide a little bit of metadata, like how big's the screen, for things like that that are essential to get an application running. With that information, you call setDriverDetails. It's a new API that allows this to all come together. And we have also some packages in FyneX, the extension of the Fyne project, which provides standard details, so you don't have to know how the devices work if it's a standard or a common device. Let's just quickly use that in some code. So we've created our Fyne app with app.new, but we want this to work in a really weird context. The one I have here is, again, it's provided by the Fynex project. We're using the UEFI driver. So your bootloader on a modern computer is probably EFI. You go through a screen before it finds your operating system definition and boots it. But what we're doing here is we're creating a new I don't have an operating system build, and it's using the definitions of an EFI bootloader on the hardware. And with that, we compile the same application again, but we load it into not an operating system, the bootloader. This QEMU, it has simply booted up this EFI image. There's no operating system, there's no security vulnerabilities, there's no code underlying the application that can be hijacked. We're just running this Fyne app, and it's the same code otherwise that you would use anywhere else. So some pretty universal app creation here, which is beyond what you might expect from existing tools. And there is a lot more that's been worked on. We have mobile scroll speed, the idea of momentum. It feels a lot more native when you're on touchscreen devices. Outside of the threading performance increases, the rendering that Eli has contributed has made a tremendous difference to the feel and speed of the applications on lower power or mobile devices. Storage is now default for the WebDriver, so if you deploy your application into the web context, it's going to remember your preferences and any files that you store in the local context. So you've got a safe multi-tenant system just because it's using local store, and that's happening all by default. Thanks for Drew and Simon's hard work on those elements as well. And we've got improvements to data binding. The APIs are using new Go generic types so that you don't have to think so much about what type goes with what widget. You can bind it to your data better. Jake's been hard at work behind the scenes on a lot of that stuff, and optimizing more of our data handling and workflow behind the scenes. We've got row wrap layout, which helps to flow multiple bits of content. System tray now knows how to show windows rather than just pop up menus. You can turn that on optionally with a new API. And we have a lot more translations as well. Portuguese, Greek, and simplified Chinese were added recently, but this I think means that we're now in 14 different languages at the toolkit level, and your application, your development, your team can add to that if you want. Sorry, that was quite a lot, but it's been a really big year, a bumper 12 months, I think, since the last one. Thank you, everybody. I mean, everybody here, everybody online, everybody I've mentioned for contributing, and everybody that I haven't. It wouldn't be possible with the community around us. Literally, that is what makes this. I hope everybody has a really fantastic day, and I'll take questions if there are any, but otherwise we'll just step on to our next presentation. Thanks. I think we're probably running a little bit behind. Right, do you want to go first there? Yeah.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
The no OS, are the applications quicker because they're not running on an OS now?
I wish that was true. They're more secure because they're not running on an OS. They're not necessarily quicker depending on exactly how it's configured. With the operating system, we get graphics acceleration, and we can hook into the rich capabilities of a GPU. When we're running with no OS, you're talking directly to the hardware, and you're probably blitting pixels into memory, switching out a buffer, and then getting the next one up. So in some cases, it could be faster, but for graphically intensive tasks, it probably will be slower because you're not talking to a really smart piece of graphics hardware. That said, if you're targeting a small embedded device, which doesn't have these advantages by default, it's going to be quicker to not bother with an operating system. So it's sort of, it depends. Yeah. We can't expect the phenomenal performance that we can get on some accelerated platforms, but it's something that's really quite, it's a substantial bump for the embedded setup. Thanks. Was the one online over there?
I was just going to say, lots of people are saying, hey, online, Eli says, thanks for the shout out, he's watching remotely, and Gordon says, impressive progress.
Oh, fantastic, thanks very much everyone. I appreciate it. I hope you're having a good time online. We've got Michelle back there, who is our coordinator with YouTube Live, because after last year, trying to do this and this and this, I sort of gave up. So she's keeping us in touch with what's going on. But yeah, hello for everybody here. I mentioned earlier that it's a really great community, diverse backgrounds, people from all over. Not everybody could be here, and not everybody really wants to present to an audience. So our next presentation was pre-recorded, and this is Alexandra's going to talk about creating a Nats UI with Fyne. We've had some sound issues here. I think we've tweaked it to the point that it should be okay, should be listenable, and we'll just play the video, and hopefully it comes through online as well. It should be a direct feed out to the live stream. But just bear with me a second whilst we switch context.
Hi guys, today we'll talk about Nats UI with Fyne. Who I am? My name is Alexandre Souza, browser coder, dad of 3 amazing girls, and parent soul driver and light web rare. I have been coding since 2006, yes, before TikTok, before Code Native, and before Go school. Today, Go is my home. My passion is with system because the music activity is basically a crime against the music. And yes, I have 2 daughters. They are my greatest joy and my toddler's kid. When they ask, Daddy, tell me a story, I say, once upon a time, there was nets broken and dropped the message. They don't laugh, but they still hug me. So I listened why I use Fyne, when not React or Electron. One binary 0 dependencies, go build instant native app, native look and feel, go code is Y code, Node.js or virtual DOM, go just go. And build themes and icons, dark, light together, PNG and NB, responsive per default. In my favorite, this size, the very small. My initial goal is use with nets, and I create this project for connecting nets and send message, receive message. You can use the topics and subs and more one topics, more one sub. But after this, I think why not use other browsers like Nets, RapidQ, PubSub, Kafka, and others. This is an example. I have Nets, Rapid, PubSub, and in other terminal I send the message that's hello and the project receive. I had named the project for begin is Nets UI, but now is Broker UI. You can add other provider. I have Nets, PubSub, Rapid, but I can add Redis or Kafka or other broker. You need the implementation interface. Easy custom icons. If you can, when you can add the PNG icons, very easy. I created a function, return find resource, and I have my icons, and I can see my database. Now I can read messages I receive. I can 2 messages, I can servers. I simply use this for another implementation using dashboard or some AI process. I don't know. I am thick about this. But when we receive the message, the broker will get the message and insert in the database. Yes, I use the CLI for database because it's very easy. I don't start on Docker Compose or using the Cloud DB. Maybe in the future I add the other database like Postgres or MySQL. I don't know. So let's see this. This is a project. It's my database. I can the database interface. I use a message repository for save messages, server repository, and the first version I want the only file, and I had the mem and the big menu with every project is input in one file. But after some time, I see this is very bad because when I want to add the other provider, is very complicated. Okay, and now I reorganize every project. Now I have the internal package and database, messages, modules, services. Why this is very important. In my team, I have my team here, my light team here. My mem is very small now. I use my this DB. I need to rename this DB. RSDB, and I try use Docker Compose in the future when I can use the other database. And let's show this. This is a project. Project here. In Docker Compose, I have all brokers. Okay, there's 3 brokers. This terminal, I send a message. When I send message here, this messages need show here. Okay, I send a simple hello. I have hello local message, local message received to. In our database, I have 3 messages. Okay, let's try send a message here. Then I need to use a sub. Okay. That's why early. Not reservation. Okay. Might not. Internal my test. My test sub. Okay, let's run again. Connect my local. When I send the message here, this message needs to show here. Okay, subject local. Hi, this is a test. Okay, hi is a test. My sub hi is a test in our database. Hi, this is a test. When I send the message, I don't save here because I think for saving the message you need to save this. Don't send. because if I save and save, I have a double message here, and the goal is save only receive messages. Okay. Hi guys, is this? Thank you for watching, and welcome the Fyne Conf.
Cool. Thanks very much indeed. It's quite an insightful presentation there into the way that, that project was constructed and what was learned along the way. Now, if we just juggle back again and bring up the presentation here. Yeah, I have a slide that says that we're going to welcome up Simon to talk about what's been going on in the command line tools package. And then I realized I'm going to have to switch context again because the slides are in a different package, but with a different file. We'll bring that up, and after this we'll take a break for some coffee and we can have a chat with folk in the room as well. So thanks Simon for being here. After this we'll take a break for some coffee and we can have a chat with folk in the room as well. So thanks Simon for being here. After this we'll take a break for some coffee and we can have a chat with folk in the room as well. So thanks Simon for being here. After this we'll take a break for some coffee and we can have a chat with folk in the room as well. So thanks Simon for being here. After this. So it turns out that I'd accidentally joined the live stream yesterday, and the tab set dormant until that moment to interrupt and tell us that it was working. So thank you, Chrome. Very helpful. Let me just bring that up here. Oh, no, not that one. This one here. Cool. We've got a tab here that's next, and that's previous for some reason, and the camera's capturing your face there, so just in that general area. Thank you very much.
All right. Here we go. Yeah, since last year, FyneConf 2024, on my plate a lot has happened since I successfully managed the core contributor team. So I'm basically showing where I got most busy. I also was working in the main Fyne repository, but in the tools area I found a lot of things that I just wanted to improve. So I'm going to talk about that. And the things that I have, first a bit about myself, then the migration from into the tools repository was a story in itself. There were a bunch of cleanups. Part of that is unification of the flags. We improved the help. We got some new commands. We can create new apps really easy and quickly now. Translations got improvements. We have open issues, and we're going to talk about the next steps in the tools repository. Some background about me. Done software development for a while. And put a new picture, but I didn't manage to put that on the presentation itself when I signed up. Too busy with all the other things, I guess. And yeah, lately I've been doing consultant work, and I'm lucky enough that I actually have clients that I could convince or used already Fyne. So I plan to do more of that, I hope. And some things are already in the pipeline, so I'm actually pretty excited going forward about that. My work history is also coming from the original web area, so to speak, and worked my way through all of the things into the back end, and at some point I was so annoyed with web things that I got into Fyne, and I've been busy with that, and that got me into the whole project. I wrote an application, or am developing one that I talked about last time. That's now part of the last time frame here. But there's more to come on the next FyneConf, I guess, or in between. But for now, stick with what I have at the moment. Bit about my open source background, because I consider that sort of relevant. Fyne is open source, and I'm also trying to contribute open source wherever I can. The app that I'm developing, I also want to open source soon, but yeah, the different presentation. Where I got my fingers into was the usual stuff in the web ages back then, got into database stuff. At some point, the OpenBSD project was something I got very enthusiastic about, contributed a lot, and I'm still using it on a daily basis. Did contributions to all sorts of projects, and in the Fyne area specifically, it started on OpenBSD as well. The only thing that was missing to get it going was just the support in GoGLW. Everything else was just working, so it was one patch essentially, and things were off to a good start. Since then, there were a bunch of bug reports, pull requests, and yeah, last year the core contributor acceptance. And yeah, since then I've put a lot of work into the tools. And that all started with the repository migration. I wanted to work on this, but in order to start this, it should be in the right place, of course. And I've done a lot of version control system migrations in the past, so if I can't do that hard, this one, moving from one Git to another. But changes on both sides, it's getting tricky. And then you have cherry picking in both directions and things like that. So it's not as trivial as you initially think. You go through it once, seems reasonable, and you think the second time is going to be easy too. But yeah, no way. You can't automate it. I tried to recycle the scripts that I had from the first time, but basically I had to go everything manually anyways. So it took a while to get this done. But yeah, we managed. And then the cleaning up started. There were a lot of things, and I'm generally very fond of good command line tooling. So there were a couple of things that stood out to me that were related to just when you run the command line tool, you see the output, and then if you just keep staring at it, at some point things start popping out where inconsistencies are shown, or things are missing, or not really clear. That also relates to the flags. There were a lot of flags are used in multiple commands, for example, like app ID or app build. They use in the build, in the package, in the release commands, and they were specified everywhere individually. So I centralized all of that. We now have basically one central flags repository, so to speak, and it makes it much easier to consistently use the same flags, because you're now only using the type of flag from the so-called flag repository, and then you're just saying I want the app build flag, and then you can put that in. So now we have lots of repetitions of those centralized flags, and new commands are easy to support because you just pick from those flags. And if you need to add new ones, it's also really easy because they're all central, organized group by type. And makes it a lot easier to maintain and increases readability as well, because the flag specifications are rather verbose, and this reduces it just to the name and the variable you want the value to be stored in. And this is an example of that for the app build flag. It's a static map, so even if you screw it up, you basically see it at build time. And because the map doesn't have the keys allocated, that don't exist, so if you try to access it, it just explodes directly, which is sure can be seen as a drawback, but I think it's easier to test than having to run through all sorts of runtime situations. Yeah, it's not super interesting. The pointer being passed in can be nil as well, and then the Eurofab CLI package just ignores it, so that's not causing a null pointer exception. Yeah. And then how that's being used is essentially just putting in maybe the inflex in this case with the key of the map and the variable to store the value in. Pretty straightforward. Not much more to say about that. But that whole process improved the whole help functionality. It made things a lot more readable, and it looks a lot nicer. Here's just a diff of the command line output. And one thing, like I basically oriented myself on what the CLI package provides itself. So it always starts with a verb and then what the command does. And I basically went through all of the commands, made sure that they're all phrased in the same way. Interpunctation, I made sure that they're all consistent. There's no dot at the end anymore. And you can also see now there are the shortcuts for all the commands. So it looks directly a lot more cleaned up. And for the flags, it's pretty much the same story. They were always with lowercase. And I also make sure this all speaks the same type of language. So if it starts with show help, specify something, enable always with the verb and always lowercase, which is, if you keep staring at it long enough, you keep seeing those things, and that's what I did, so I changed it. Now we're getting a bit more into the commands itself. The install command wasn't able to handle text, and one of my projects, I've been releasing a beta version, and that beta version was handled via the beta tag, and when I tested locally, I had to pass the beta tag, so that's how I started using it, or how I discovered it and then kept using it, because it's really convenient just to install the version that you want locally without having to go through the whole process otherwise. Yes, exactly. And it's just one parameter more, and again, it comes from the central flag repository. I didn't have to specify anything else, just put it in and make sure that the variable is then being used. So then this is the example that I had where I just installed with the beta tag. Another command that I looked into a bit more was the bundle command, which for some time seemed really useful. Then I discovered the embedding, and then I thought that's better than doing it with bundle. But then I thought, why not change bundle to use embedding? So basically, what I've been doing manually, anyways. And so that's what this change is about. And additionally, I noticed that in the Go generator scripts, you can use wildcards, but Go, it's not running with a shell, so it's just in Go. So I basically added support for globbing the wildcards directly. So now you can use it in the generator scripts really easily. Essentially, just put in Go generate, find bundle, and whatever you want. So it just bundles all your things. In the previous talk, that also showed up where it was loading an image, and that could be done this way as well, for example. Makes it really easy, like just put that line in and your embedding is basically handled for you, and you directly have it. The resource prefix, that's the default of the bundle command. You can just access all your bundled resources. Now I jumped ahead a bit. This is what I talked about before, the native embedding of files. That's just handled as you would expect it. Previously, there were the bytes directly included in the source file that's visible here in the div. So what it generated before and what it looks like after. So it's using the Go embed package, directly passing the content to the static content. And another command that we brought in is Fyne init, which is super practical because it can really quickly create new applications. Couldn't be any easier. It's fantastic for bug reports. And basically, since I added that, I constantly use it whenever some bug comes up. I'm basically directly doing this, and then I try to copy in the code that's failing or where I think it's failing, and then I just message it until it works, and I can use that minimal example in the bug report. It makes it really easy for people to reproduce. And I think we should encourage people to use this more, specifically for bug reports. Maybe we should put it in the template even, so that people know this is the fastest way to get this, because otherwise what I did previously as well was looking it up, basically copy pasting from the Fyne page or my own examples, but this is a lot easier. And this is what the command help output looks like. By default, you can just create a directory and in that directory you type Fyne init, and that's it. And if you put the minus verbose flag, then it tells you what it does. So basically all the things that you would have to do yourself. First the code, then the go mod init, the tidying and all of that, but now it's just init, and then you can directly run it without any other interaction. So that's this code basically, and it just gives you what you would expect. Really fast. And one thing that was so fast, but sooner or later, depending on the size of the project, ultimately will come up is translations. And since I wanted to translate one of my projects, I looked into how to doing that easier, which resulted in a new Fyne command as well. And I'm actually kind of proud of this one because I looked how other languages do the translation things, and a lot of them are, in my opinion, comparatively dirty because they use regular expressions to scan for strings. And since Go has a ASP parser itself, I could just use that to scan all the code and really be sure that the things that I'm scanning are actually things that should be translated. At the same time, I saw, okay, if I get already all the files, that I can also, on an ASP level, I can also scan into the imported dependencies. So what this allows, if you scan for imports, it goes through everything that's being imported. So even if you're using foreign libraries where the translation for the language you're producing for is missing, it will still pick it up, and you still can add that translation. Actually, I think that way we even found some missing translations in the Fyne toolkit after running that. And adding that to the Hello World app earlier, looks basically like this. Here we're using embed to load the translations from the JSON files that we're about to generate in the next slide, and then loading the translations and using the lang package to call the actual translation. And how to use the translation command is first that you need to create the translations directory yourself, otherwise, or you specify a different path. By keeping it separate in a directory makes it a bit cleaner, otherwise you have all the JSON files in your main directory. That's a bit ugly. But then you basically just call the translate command and you tell where you want the output to be saved, and then it, without arguments, it just scans everything. So if you do it in the main directory, it will go through all of it recursively and find all translation strings, puts them in the JSON file, as you can see there, and then I made a really simple example for a German translation, which is just copying the file, replacing the English with German. And then if you run it, you get the German result. Even though you need to watch out that you're using the right language. On Linux systems, I guess you can use or call it the lang variable. I forgot how it was on Windows, but you can also change it there. And on Mac OS, there's another thing. I'm not sure. I don't have this on those slides. I forgot. But you need to tell Fyne in the Fyne app YAML file what languages it knows about. Otherwise, on Mac OS at least, it won't show you in the preferences where you can set the preferred languages per application. It doesn't show you the drop down, it just shows you a warning like no translations available. And I noticed in the process, but unfortunately forgot to add it to the slides. But yeah, at least I'm sharing it now here, so if you're wondering, this is why. And the other things, oh yeah, right, the install command. That's working now basically like go install, pretty much exactly if I think about it. It respects the tags. If you don't specify a tag, it uses the latest as Go would. So meaning it actually doesn't use the latest, this is the latest version, but not the head from Git basically. It really uses the latest tag. Or version specifically, that I'm actually not sure about. if it could be any tag or needs to be a specific version. But either way, it uses the last official version, most recent official version. Yeah. So like Go effectively. And the install command also works locally, and yeah, it just does what you want. The help looks aligned with the rest, so you can also put add tags, set the release mode in order to strip the debug symbols and so on. But effectively, you just find install, and then here I use the example where also I think I contributed 1 or 2 commits as well to the QR code generator that Andy came up with after there was a funny conversation online where a bunch of people said like, yeah, we need to find QR code generator, and there were a bunch of implementations suddenly popping up. So this is then the one where we agreed to contribute to. Another thing also related to the tooling is that with the threading that Andy mentioned before, with the latest changes, new apps automatically get this set up in the Fyne app tonal file. So it does say under migrations, Fyne do is true directly, so you don't even have to worry if you create new apps. And if you use those calls, basically any Go routine outside of Fyne scope, you essentially just add this call, the Fyne do, with, in this case, example, a label that's being enabled. And then that's thread safe. And looking forward, there's always things open. There's actually, I've been focusing in the tools repository more on the PRs, I realized, than I was focusing on the issues. So now that means there's a bunch of things that I know I should look into because they're going to be useful. There are, for example, ideas about optimizing the WASM output that we generate, because it's relatively large and we hope to get it smaller. And another idea that I also think is interesting is adding app metadata for Linux packages to make it easier for the packaging systems and so on, which relates to distribution related things, which is a topic that's going to come up anyways. And yeah, I don't have it on this one. I picked that up this morning because it is something on my plate, but I didn't realize that we're going more officially for it, so that's going to be exciting, I think. What was that about? Okay. There's one open PR about the Go flags from the environment not being passed on Android and I think on Windows too. That's an older PR that also has the same problem. So the new solution here will probably solve both, if I understand it right. So that's going to come soon. And there's going to be support for pre-release text in the versions. That's the PR that's pending. That initially I thought it's a good idea, but then I tested on Windows and saw that it wouldn't work because Windows itself doesn't allow pre-release information. So I jumped into that one, fixed that. So now we can go back to adding pre-release information to like on a higher level for all Fyne applications. And one yuck that keeps staring at me is Fyne cross. So there's going to be some shading in the future. I looked already in the command line, how the commands and flags and everything, how they work in there. And there's a custom implementation that I need to look into to align it with what we have now in the tools as a first step. So there's going to be a couple of steps to migrate this. I don't gonna make any promises how long that's going to take. But I think, yeah, that's the direction we need to take. And the last thing then that I'm always eager to do, but I always have to be careful, you can't just nuke deprecated code, because maybe someone's still relying on it, maybe there's a deprecation policy, so this is also going to take more time than I expected. Yeah. think I'm probably a lot faster than I thought I would be. Or not. I don't know. Someone tracking the time, actually?
We're good. We're running ahead of time. There's time for questions.
Right,
There's
cool.
a lot of stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, so then, questions, please, if there are any.
I wondered actually, you mentioned that the install command is now pretty much identical to the go install command.
Yeah.
But they're clearly different things. Is it worth just dropping in why we want an install command for the Fyne tool, even though it looks identical from the outside?
Well, I mean, the quick explanation is that the Fyne install does a lot more than the Go install would do. Like the distribution related part, packaging really for the specific operating system and so on. That's not something Go would do, that's something we need to do within Fyne. Even though the question probably didn't reach the online audience. So the question was, what's the difference between Fyne install and Go install? And that's what I was just saying, that Fyne does more than Go for the install.
I had one more question. I loved how you're using the init to set up an app really quickly and test some code that somebody said this is broken, it's not working, and then you work on it from there. I just wondered, have you thought about like a GitHub integration, so you could go, I'm working on this bug, pull the code into my app, work on it, and then maybe even like push comments or fixed notes or something onto the issue? I'm kind of brainstorming, but I'm curious if you thought about doing something like that.
I'm actually not sure I understand. I mean, I get some of the question, but I'm not sure I understand it fully.
Well, if you're using it in a workflow to test bugs that have been reported, is that a workflow that we could do better automatically? So I'm going to work on this bug fix, like tell the tool, because you know the code in GitHub should in theory be fenced with a code block, and maybe we can do really clever, streamlined things to save going back and forth between the GitHub UI and copying and pasting, or maybe I'm just inventing workflows that don't need to be optimized.
Okay, for the online audience, the question is if we can use the Fyne init approach or something along those lines in order to make it into a workflow on GitHub. I guess where it's then more contained on the issue itself rather than the full example. That's the yeah, I don't know. Like I'm with this approach, I'm already so happy because it makes things so much faster. And maybe other people are also picking this up now and come up with new ideas that I haven't had yet. So yeah, I've sure if there's more. And also, that's a different one related to Fyne init. I think I didn't mention this. There is another PR pending now where we're gonna add, or I want to add, like a very minimal translation example to the Fyne init. So if you generate a new app, it automatically gives it to you with like one translations call, and from there it's really easy to extrapolate to start your app with all translations from the start, rather than as an afterthought later where you then have to go through all the labels, put in the lang X calls and so on. But it can make it faster to get going. Also, I want to push translations generally speaking. Like computing is so much English speaking, but the world is so much bigger than that, so I think pushing in that direction is a good idea. Anyone else? Then thank you everyone, and especially the core team, because I keep pushing for things, but I also keep getting fantastic feedback. I really have to say that. Without the feedback, I guess sometimes I would be lost. And then, speaking of engagement, Andy, like as always, doing a fantastic job. So thanks for that. And yeah, no, it's not Fyne Labs anymore, but thank you for sponsoring AppTricks AI, and of course all the other community members. It's always fun to work and interact with everyone. I really enjoy that. And then the audience, and then you online or wherever you are, thank you. And with that, the icon says it, it's time for a break or lunch, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Simon. It is indeed time for a break. I've got a magic button here that puts the schedule up online, but I have to tap so many different buttons here to do the same thing for a screen that is much closer. So let me just do that. I think we're running about 15 minutes ahead of schedule, which is absolutely expected. I didn't tell anybody else this, but there was a bit of flex in the schedule. So I said, hey Simon, do you want some more time? He's like, oh yeah, plenty of time, all the better. Actually, it wasn't needed, so that's kind of nice.
I went all the time.
Oh, well,
Good.
I think we're doing just grand. It's time for a break. The coffee arrived early, which is fantastic. I'm going to say, because I don't think it's any problem for anybody coming in later or online, we could probably just start again 15 minutes ahead of schedule. It gives us a bit more time to get out before we're kicked out of the building as well. So I think if we're back here at 3:15, and the second half of our afternoon, I believe we're going to see pretty fast-paced, in some cases, but 7 different apps that people have been working on, and some lightning and community app showcase, and then a little bit about the future of the project, where to go, and the chance to feed in on that as well. But yes, online folk recommend stretch your legs, get a coffee. We're going to go do the same, and see everybody back here in half an hour. Thanks very much. Cool. I don't think the microphone's muted. I thought if I mute the microphone, I'm going to forget to unmute it again. So, is it okay?
It's still good.
Oh, but yeah, that's fine. Ironically, we're supposed to. This is still a live mic.
That's still live.
Do you want me to mute it? back to the main display. And over to Chrome. Okay, right, I think that's back. We're online, we're raring to go, hotter than ever. Might just be the room temperature, or it might just be the excitement of all of the things we're trying to pack into the afternoon. I was desperately trying to make up a Go joke on my way here to test the microphone, but it turns out everything's working and I didn't need the material anyway, which is great because I couldn't think of one. But
It could go anywhere.
it could go anywhere. Oh,
Hey.
fantastic, I love it. Yeah, so nobody's here to listen to me for the next little while. Our next speaker, which I'm very excited to be able to hear from again, Tanguy, thanks for coming over and talking to us about the application that you've been building. I can't wait to hear all about it, actually, so just over to you.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Andrew, for the introduction and for this conference. I'm Tanguy. I'm a software engineer at my own company. I'm a freelancer. And so I'm going to present an app that I will quickly describe. So this application is, so a friend of mine asked me to work together on a project for one of his clients. And their business is in the logistics area. They deliver big furnitures via trucks in France. And right now, they're still doing it in the good old days of paper. And they wanted to improve this process. And they were thinking about a mobile app. So generally, they get all their furnitures and big parcels in their own storage area, centralized, and then they deliver on each destination to provide for different clients. And so the process of that would be that a truck driver would come on Monday morning, pick up the paper, which is quite heavy because they have a lot of work, and so they take this for the whole week, and they drive around the country for 1 week completely, and at the end of the week they come back and they're done. And but so during this time, if there is any problem or status update, the company doesn't know anything about it basically, except if they call them, and so. Most of the time, it's just we don't know until they come back. Because sometimes what happens, somebody is not there. They said they would be there, but they're not there. But then the next destination is too far away to just come back extra. So it's sometimes hard to juggle. This app has the added benefit of making it paperless, so there is less paperwork to deal with, and also have feedback sooner. So one of the reason, one of the constraint of the application is that it needs to work offline, because a truck driver might be lost in the middle of areas where there is nearly no signal, but the app still should work. I was supposed to show you a demo. But I think with the time that I have, it's going to be a little bit short. Anyway, just to describe it, it's mostly basic widget. It's really a management app. And what we manage shipping routes. And in those shipping routes, for the whole week, we have different destinations. Once at the destination, we deliver for multiple clients, because we had a parcel from different clients to deliver to those destinations. And then we check that everything's all right, and then we move on to the next destination. It's a very hierarchical data structure. So here is one of the screens. This is once they arrive at a destination, they can before they arrive at this destination, they just decide okay, which one they're going to. And then they can have Google Maps open automatically to direct them there. I'm going to describe quite fast the the architecture, I hope it will be big enough for people online. If Michel, if you can tell me if there is like some people complaining about the size. And for this, if I remember right, okay, so just to have like so yeah, we have the truck driver who will be using the application, and there will be also the ERP from the company that they have developed themselves because the current owner is a software engineer from before as well. So he also developed some part of it. And we have an external dependency on an OSM tile creator for just this little map because I was not motivated to create like an SVG renderer of OSM data street data. All right, so let's go to the diagram. Does it work? Does it? Yes. Oh, it's in black. Can I change? Well, I hope it's gonna be okay. Can you see? Yeah, okay. All right, so let's dig into Telescan. I'm gonna zoom in if I know how to do it. Do I? No. Okay, that's... Oh, yeah, it's because it's the other way. Okay. Well, it's very sensitive. Okay, so so basically it's split into the whole app is, there is a mobile app that I will describe because it's what's interesting for us. There is a REST API that that will store all the data for those shipping routes, and that stores that in a database. And there is a REST client for the ERP because the ERP is developed in PHP, but so we need like some library to access the API. And so the API, for now, it was still the mobile app that would actually contact the OSM tile, which kind of made the whole offline moot because when you wanted to go to the destination, then you couldn't like display the map. So now I'm moving it to the REST API, so then all the data is get directly. So when the mobile app starts, basically it gets all the data from the shipping route onto the device, and normally they're good to go. And when they can, it synchronizes to the REST API, and this is when the ERP can get like updates along the way. So on the mobile app, it's just a partial, okay, which one was it? No, yes, okay. So basically, I have some kind of logic. This is kind of the offline logic. Is I created like a shipping route store, which is just in memory, but it persists the data that it has synchronized with the REST API in Fyne preferences as a simple JSON dump of the whole state. And what happens during the life cycle of the app, there is a sync Go routine that runs in the background and will check if the state of the shipping route has changed, and if it's the case, then it's going to synchronize to the RIP client. And I think it does that every 1 minute. So even like if they did some updates, but there was no network, next minute we'll try again and update as much as possible. And so this goes then to the REST API. That is completely all the way different. Anyway, so there is also a Fyne Android intent camera that allows to basically take pictures, and then we save them also in the REST API server. We have like some image storage system. And as well, the signature widget, once we have a widget that allows people to sign with their fingers. If when this is done, we also save in the same image backend on the REST API. All right, I think this is like a big overview. So for the tech options, It has been a long time. I have worked on a full project from A to Z. I always join team as a freelancer. It's like, okay, we need one more developer, so join the team. And so you need to always adapt to the technologies and the way the team work. And here, my friend was very busy with other contract. He was mostly doing the project management and some PHP development. And so I was really able to have fun. And so my friend was more leaning on the progressive web apps because they have the background workers and stuff like that to do all those synchronization. But from my own experience of using progressive web apps, I was not so satisfied because sometimes you didn't have the network and you didn't have the app. And like, well, the promise was to be able to use it as a native app and stuff. And there was as well another problem is I don't remember exactly the date, but at some point, Apple decided like, you know what, Google, progressive web apps, we're not doing them. And for 1 or 2 years, people were like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do progressive web apps because Apple did say they wouldn't support it. Actually, they changed again. They're like, okay, we're going to support it. But still, like, it's like putting all the effort of development in an app that then get unusable afterwards is not very enticing. So then we could go native. And so there is like React Native, Android with Java or Kotlin, there's Flutter, there's Vue, and Fyne. So React Native, basically, I decided against because like progressive web apps was web. I wanted to get away from web as well. And React Native, from what I've heard, like the tooling is maybe can change too much and stuff like that. So I just wanted like, basically I'm using Go because it's very stable and I don't want to have a problem every 2 or 3 months. And talking about that, let's talk about Flutter. I tried Flutter back in the day and it was like, oh, it seems very nice, okay. Dart, okay, I would have preferred Go, but whatever, let's try. And so I tried and I just did a hello world. And I added one button to display the call logs of the phone and one button to record myself. And that was it. And then I didn't touch it for 3 months. And then I was like, oh, I would like to add this functionality on the thing. So I just did a Flutter run without touching anything, Flutter run the app, and I was expecting to rerun what it used to run 3 months ago. I really didn't touch it. And everything was broken. It took me 3 hours to fix it because Flutter Run actually did update Flutter, updated Dart to a breaking level change version. And so all the plugins that I was using, or extension, I don't remember the name, well, the dependency were broken because they were using a syntax that was not compatible with the new version of Dart. And I'm like, wow. So I put like basically 1 night of work for just a hello world and I lost already 3 hours on it. Like what if I had like a real project for clients? Like losing that amount of time is crazy. So I was like, okay, no, thank you. Vue, I was very excited for a while. It's just like at some point, like there was a lot of breaking change because like they're still like developing many features. And so as well, like I was like, okay, maybe it's not stable enough. And I didn't discover Fyne until actually late. And I'm very glad I did because that's when I started like looking at what it was doing. But actually, I didn't really work with Fyne that much before. So before I go to that point, just, so yeah, because there is Android as well, Java, Kotlin. And people say like, oh, but Java, yeah, it's too heavy, just don't use it. With Kotlin, it's great. But the problem, I think, is not just Java or Kotlin being better than Java or something. For me, the problem is the platform, which is Android. Android SDKs have changed so much. The last time I touched them, and now they are completely different. There have been a lot of breaking changes all around. And so it's very hard to keep track of as well. So this is not where I wanted to use my energy, or at least not in a way that basically all the investment I put right now will be lost in the next 2-3 years, and I do it again. I have to do it again. I don't want constant investment in technology all the time. I want to have like some return on investment at some point. So just to have fun for a second, like how do you get contacts in Android SDK? So first you have a contact contract. Okay, I don't know why. We need a loader manager. Loading what? I don't know. But we need a loader manager which has loader callbacks from cursor. As a cursor, and then we have from columns. So you put everything. It's like very. I don't know what it does. Anyway, this is copy pasted from the official tutorial. Then you have this. You need a projection. I still don't know what it is. And they actually put suppress linter, which gives you, done in the official documentation, you already need to suppress the linter, which tells you that you're doing something wrong. I mean, and this is number 2. Oh, and then here you have syntax, like SQL-like syntax. So even though they have many layers of types and abstraction, still there are ways to have problems in runtime because you didn't put the right character in your string. And then finally we have our cursor that use the loader, put the contract with content URI, projection selection and stuff. For me, it's just gibberish. I don't understand. For me, like, this cursor is cursed, and that's it. Anyway, so let's move on. And I decided for Fyne, the problem that I had was I actually didn't develop with Fyne for real. But I really trusted into the project. I've seen like many presentations that Andrew did, and I was really amazed by them. So I was like, I think it can handle that. I was like, okay. I don't know if you know about the innovation token, if you've heard about it. Like some people, like if you do a project, you need to have 1 to 3 innovation token. Otherwise, like you might just go in the wall because you're just losing your time getting up to speed with a new way of doing things. And so I was like, okay. I will try to get only 1 token and it will be fine because it might be a big one, but I'm confident. But there was some risk. So I was like, on this I need to really de-risk the project as much as possible. The big risk for me was interaction with camera. We needed pictures, for example, they deliver something and it falls and the package, the parcel is damaged. And then the client's like, okay, I need a proof of that, and you need to, I can sign this, but like, I need the picture that you messed up somewhere or something like that. So we needed support from pictures for the device. We need support from the GPS also to know where they actually delivered the goods. And we needed offline interaction. And for me, the problem that I saw was that it's an Android app, and I know Android tries to kill app at some point, the memory manager, and it's less hard than in iOS, for example, which I think it just spent the time killing apps, but it's still like an issue, so I wanted to test that, really test that first, so that this is what I focused on in the first place. Even before starting the project, I wanted to make sure that, yes, I can access the camera. And so I took my time to do this before saying, like, okay, let's go on this technology. For the rest, I was like, I will find a way. It's okay. And if I don't, I can always ask Andrew on the chat. So basically what I did, like since I could manage all the way I wanted, I didn't have Jira tickets to fill, I didn't have sprint to do, but I tried to stay kind of agile and have like some small deadlines to be able, like, okay, did I advance well? Did I have like some slowdowns and stuff like that? So my idea was really, I've worked on different projects and sometimes we were just like, okay, it's gonna work like that, it's gonna work like that, there will be this kind of data. But actually, this kind of data that we thought was actually far from the real data. So I went to the business owners, like, give me like a CSV file, whatever, with real data, because I want to test on the screen the size. I want to test what format it is. If I need like to transform, for example, in France, we have locale with a comma to separate like numbers instead of dots, for example. those kind of things, like I needed like to test soon. Then create a data model out of it, out of the base data they had. And then I wanted like to create fixtures with those data directly in the code. So I could really load my app with real data and check it out. I also used, so this is my personal plug. I used rip.rest, which is like called a rest in peace library, which creates like a HTTP server, RESTful HTTP server, very fast. You have your struct data in Go, and you basically create a CRUD system that works with JSON or different encoding system. And I was like, okay, this is time to shine. I'm gonna make the servers like in less than 1 day or something. It's gonna be very fast, and it was, so I was happy about this. Then I use Fyne preference to cache data between the REST server and local to get the offline capabilities. And then I realized that, okay, my initial model was based on real data, but maybe the structure is not exactly, it won't stay like that. Maybe I will find some better way to store stuff. Maybe there will be new field that needs to happen and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, but if my friend developed the connection in PHP to my REST API and I break everything, not gonna be happy. But we needed to also start integrating with the ERP. So we needed to kind of move on both fronts. And this is where I was like, okay, I think maybe something could help. And so I was like, maybe I should add OpenAPI capabilities to the server. So then it exposed an OpenAPI spec that I could generate a PHP client from it. And so just by writing this code, you create a new provider, basically, which is the CRUD thing, which doesn't have any HTTP thing. It's just like database stuff or repository if you have like this architecture. And then it's just your data. So you pass the route option with JSON codec, then you pass the mux, you create a router out of it, and then you say, okay, on this address, I could do a get, put, delete, and what else, post, and then I handle all my shipping routes. And then I decided once this worked, and we could generate a client for it, and it worked as well. So then I was like, okay, but now I need one that works for my mobile app, so I need a Go client. And I didn't want to generate it, because in general I've seen code generated from OpenAPI tool, and it's not that great. It's practical, but like not that great. And also I wanted like maybe caching capabilities, and so I wanted like more leeway to do that. So I developed it with this project to get like a good connection. And so basically you create a client new, you pass the struct you want to handle, you pass the URL where you're going to connect, and boom, you can do client.get, client.update, client. Whatever you want, and it just works. And so the idea was also to have the cache client. So basically it would be like a cache client.new, and it would be the same, or I inject the client into the cache client, and then it just handles the cache layer. It's not there yet, so it's still a work in progress. So this was like kind of more like the interaction with the server, and for Fyne, so I needed like a barcode scanner widget. Nothing crazy, it's an input, all right? But it just has a special logic, because this scanner, when I was scanning on the phone, it wouldn't put like a carriage return. It wouldn't validate the entry. So then it would have forced the truck driver to scan and then press the enter button on the pop-up from the keyboard, which was not as cool. So basically I made a little logic which was like, okay, every time there is an input, I'm going to put a timeout of 20 milliseconds, and if nothing has happened in the next 20 milliseconds, I'm going to validate. So it makes it unusable by trying to type very fast on the keyboard, but it works very well with a scanner. Then I created a very basic signature widget. It was more of a proof of concept, and it worked. It's ugly and slow. So as we say, my idea was like make it work, make it make it work, make it good, make it fast. So it's still on make it work phase, but I've seen like a nice tutorial and other libraries that implement some signature widget from Stripe. So I think it should improve in the next few days. Along the way, I also needed like a camera widget, camera roll widget. And for this, so I have the button on the left that actually launch the camera from the phone. And then every time you have capture a picture, then it will add to the list on the right. And I also added like the same behavior than the Signal app for the picture you want to share with friends. When you're not, when you want to remove a picture you just selected, then there is like a trash icon. You press again, and then it deletes it. So it avoids like the undo thing. It's like a confirm that is not as annoying as a pop-up. I would love some transparency here, so I'm going to improve that. Again, it's make it work. We're going to make it good. Will be a little bit later. And then came, so for the blue button here, the camera, I needed to actually, I didn't want to develop a full camera app. That would have required too much work. So I wanted to use the camera from the phone. In Android, you would use like an intent for that. So the intent in Fyne, not easy. And so this is what I came up after spending, I think, maybe 1 or 2 weeks. It's a lot of abstraction, but again, compared to the abstraction of Android that put all those abstraction on you, the developer, to create, this was me as trying to integrate that in Fyne as the library creator. So then, for the user, it's easy. Once all of this is implemented, the user just import the camera package and does camera.open, and that's it. And then you are in the camera app, and you press, you take your picture, and then it returns back, you validate, you return back to the app, and you get the data back to Fyne. But for now, it just works for camera. I want to make something that is that's more generic for all the intents of Android, even though I don't think it's so used anymore compared to the beginnings. But for me, it was the best way to launch the camera. So this might come when I have time, you know, the famous when I have time. Along the way, I also needed some tools. I'm not going to try. There was a QR code generator. That's why I was laughing when Simon presented it, because as I have like the device with a scanner, I needed like to scan some, input some data, and as my input didn't allow me to input unless I was typing like Superman, I needed a way to input with the scanner, and so I just like used the QR code generator to generate whatever data I wanted to input. I created a screenshotter for the app and used like a clipboard package that allows to save that into the clipboard. So then I could just go on GitHub issues and paste directly the screenshot of my advancement on the UI development. So that was nice, because like then I could like close the issues when the screen kind of looked like what it was supposed to in the first place. That allowed me like to track this. So then I just had like, I don't remember, maybe F11 or something, and then I had like the screenshot in the clipboard. I also, since we're in Go, we can run whatever we want, and if we want in the background, we just prefix with Go in front. So I made an embedded server. So then when I had to demo for the client, for example, and if I didn't have any network, Well, I could still do it because my REST API was running on my Android device in a Go routine. So that was pretty practical to develop. And also it started like fresh with no state. So I could also start from scratch, which has also its problems because then you always a nice state and sometimes you want to taste like some edge cases. And then I also did I developed a logger handler because I wanted to basically pass some metadata in the context of the code. And so I could log with metadata. For example, the shipping route ID. I wanted like when this happens in the log, which shipping route ID are we talking about? Which destination are we talking about, etc. So I've did that handler because it's not by default. By the way, it was not so easy to find a good documentation about this actually. And so for example, what I did in my providers, we have a create method from the provider. It has the context and then the shipping route, and it's going to create it. And so the context, I augment it with the value of the shipping route ID. And so then when I do, I create a sublogger with func create, which means like every time I will log in this function, it will say that it's in the create function. So then I know where I am also in my code. And then I do log info context. I pass the context and I put create shipping route. And I don't have my screen, so I guess I still need to refresh. It didn't refresh correctly. Okay, no. Hello? Okay, let's see. All right. Did it update? Yeah, it should. Oh no. Oh, I think I didn't put. Anyway, so now I have logs. Also, I added like another handler of slug because I use a slug from the Go 123 or 4, I don't remember. And so now I really have nice logging with colors, so I can really see each field, and I have all my context every time, so I know exactly what's happening, because that will be my production environment when like truck will be lost in the middle and say like, oh, the app didn't work. Well, at least I will know why and what happened. That's it. And I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Anthony?
Online, you're getting lots of laughs, and also Alderno says a fascinating comparison of the frameworks, which I also agree with. It was really useful thinking about what you can use for different things and how you approach it in a very systematic manner, which is useful.
Thanks. Okay.
Just feedback on the diagrams, like simply adding labels to the errors shows me this is top notch. Because you get them with just looking at them. Fantastic work.
Yeah. Well, I discovered this tool not long ago and it's saved my life. I was on a very complex project a few weeks ago, and this helped me like figure out what was happening somewhere. So it's a C4 model. Yeah, really nice.
I did have one more question. You mentioned that there was a number of risks that you identified, and you've talked through a lot of them, and that they were solvable, not necessarily straightforward, but they'll become straightforward with this work. But you didn't touch on the background process issue after that. Did you find that background process killing was a problem, or was it not?
Yes, so the question was like, there was like risks, and there was the background, the killing, OOM killing of Android. I said that I solved this issue, but I didn't present it. Yes, I actually used I think it's on started or on quitting on, I don't remember now, I don't have my code under, but it's directly on the app dot, I think it's one of those callbacks that you can register, and it works well. Basically, when Android, when for example I force kill the app, Android leaves and I guess Fyne handled that correctly to leave the process running enough so then I can actually save my data on my local store. So then I don't have so then I can die, and the next time I go up, I can send to the REST API again. But at least it's saved in the Fyne preferences, for example.
Amazing. So that was the life cycle bit, I think.
Yes, it's all the lifecycle API. Yes, and it works. Like for me, I tried to crash it many times, and it worked. So I'm good. But that was my. I was afraid that maybe like Android pushed like a kill -9 like really hard, and it's not the case. It seems so really like it was working. It has worked perfectly.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm very happy about it.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. It's great to see Fyne part of a bigger project in an enterprise and system like that. Yeah, incredible. All the thinking that goes into the different parts of a system. Now, I think we have some time for lightning talks and community showcase. I'm just going to juggle a few files here. We have 2 coming in from, they were going to be dialing in remotely, and I thought that's just a little bit adventurous, so we've got a pre-recording. Don't want to tempt fate too much. And then Simon is going to do a short one for us as well. Just bringing up my notes. Yeah, so first up we have Nova, who's going to talk about why they chose Fyne for their app and what they've been building with it. Hayden is then going to present their Bounce chat app, which is completely incredible, and you'll see some of the amazing work that he's done to make a pretty production-ready, pure chat app there. Simon's going to talk about integrating video, which is a very exciting thing to hear as well. I'm just going to play the first one. I'm also aware, for people in the room, that the folk who delivered our lovely food might come back in about 5 to 10 minutes to take it away, and it's not finished. So, they said, yeah, go on. I'll whilst I queue these videos up, there's 2 minutes to grab another bite from the table if you would like to, or top up your coffee, and then we'll just go through from there the last 45 minutes to the end.
Those brownies are amazing.
The food has been fantastic. It's really good stuff. Sorry, folk online. We'll just be a moment whilst we get this all sorted out. There was a mad dash for the food out there. Sure, there'll be one left for me before we're done.
I've solved a very important problem.
That's genius. A food delivery fairy.
Yeah, can't possibly take away those brownies.
Brilliant idea. And it's for you, it's just the PDFs that I've got here already, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool.
I don't understand why people put cherries onto tarts. I don't understand why people eat cherries at all.
I want to be right back and press play in 2 minutes.
I woke up at 6 in the morning. After going to toilet, I would like to sleep again. It was not possible. I decided, okay, in Germany it's now almost 7, it's my time to get up anyhow, so get up. And now I have these phases where I think, oh, I've just fell asleep without noticing, or that's really annoying.
I don't know what you mean.
I think that's getting old or something.
Is there one back?
Yeah.
Well, also. Come back.
Okay,
Where is it?
the back of recent text.
I also slept better already.
Underneath the desk, the spare monitor has an access.
Just to clarify,
I mean, you're right.
is the grey supported?
Yeah, yeah, I know which one it is.
Okay.
Love you.
Sorry, brief interlude. I realised there's a magic solution to how I solve the power problems, because there's a dedicated power plug, but there's not one of those cables in the room. That problem is being solved, which is pretty amazing. Anyway, yes, so we've got a couple of the lightning talks queued up. I'm just going to press play on Nova's one here. And they're talking about why they chose Fyne. And I will press the right combination of buttons.
Hi there, I'm Supernova, and well, you can call me Nova, whatever you prefer, and this is my Fyne project. Okay, so a little bit about me before we start. Hi there, I'm a full-stack software engineer at a pharmaceutical company. I make most of the internal software used for distribution of the products. I've tried quite a few programming languages and am proficient in JavaScript, TypeScript, and PHP. I can mention a few others, but I take up way too much of your time. If you've heard of me, you might know me from my more popular projects like Anon Upload and ChangeVar. However, I also have a bunch of other projects on my GitHub if you'd like to poke around and see what I'm up to. I'm quite active, which is great. Like, for example, if you wanted to keep track of your GitHub history and have like a kind of streak to motivate you to get out there and stop having a productivity blocker, you can check out GitStreak. Alright, so why I used Fyne. Admittedly, I am new to Golang, and it's really fun to try new things. So this is actually my first Go project. I'm pretty impressed. Well, it's actually a lie. It's not my first Go project. Well, this is my first free Go project, yes. However, my first Go project was basically I did Hello World, and then I tested out some buttons in Fyne, and then I had an idea, and I put it to market, and I made this thing. Yeah. I usually make apps with Electron, but I want to try out a few other alternatives. So I installed Go and looked around. I found Fyne and Whales, and well, I liked Whales. It was way too similar to Electron to me, so I went with Fyne. Fyne has a wonderful design system, big community base, and if you join the social servers, someone won't hesitate to help you out. What is the purpose of the app? The app I made was to help a fellow friend of mine solve a problem. They used Firebot for their Twitch stream and wanted a way to offer blackjack as a game. What this does is do exactly that. It's integrated nicely with Firebot's APIs, Twitch, and even offers a web overlay. Admittedly, I ran into a few roadblocks. I'm not perfect, and some folks on the Fyne Discord helped me come to some conclusions. That's why there's a few extras bundled to make everything work nicely. What are the extras? Okay, I mentioned some extras. What are they? Well, I had to implement a licensing system that allowed me to have some secret variables and make everything work together nicely. Luckily for you, I have that in the works. The plan was timed out by the time I finished recording this, but work gets in the way of my schedule, so I like to be. As mentioned previously, check out my GitHub, and it might be there someday, which would be pretty great for you. Alright, demo time. I've talked for quite a bit. Now it's time for me to demonstrate everything. And if you'd like to play around with it yourself, DM me on Discord at superdev.1 to screenshot your conference ticket. I'll send you a build and a free license so you can use it. Alright, so let's do demo. Yeah. So that's the wrong one. Here we go. So this is our Fyne project. Basically, we have a player queue. Players can add their names. So for example, I have the Twitch bot running right now. So I'm going to type /join, and that's going to put me in the queue, as you can see here. And now, what I'm going to do is it's going to be on our turn, and I'm going to do stand, because I have a score of 17. Right. And what this is going to do is it's going to cycle to the whole game, and I won, as I have 17, the dealer has 22. Great. Let's reset the game and pause the game if you'd like, which is basically it's like pausing the queue. Kind of fun. Yeah. So we have some settings, our licensing stuff, have the whole Twitch bot there, got our server, got some display stuff, which you get your card back and you can do that. Developer mode, game rules, you have your blackjack rules, have some Firebot configuration, so you can set up your gems in that. This is our player queue, as you can see earlier. Have our players in queue, have some settings, have some analytics for our session, turnover rate, all that stuff. History for our bulkhead, and we have a debug menu here. As you can see, this tracks all of our events, and all of our console logs are filtered here. Pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, so let's switch over. Let's just show the code. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the code. So as you can see, we have the bot up here for some of our commands, which we have our queue, hitting, standing, double, splitting, betting, and then there's some rule commands, help commands, some of our event stuff, moderator checks. There's a bunch of code here which keeps configs, our assets, as you can see here. Have some web stuff here. Basically all of our web overlay would go here, and I want to get it working, but OBS sucks and it does not want to work, which is unfortunate. It looks quite great. It interfaces nicely, has a bunch of animations, all the works. Now, unfortunately, that's all I have time for. I hope you like what I made. See ya.
Cool. Thanks very much, Nova. That's really interesting. I want to play that game actually and see all that stuff. That was a lot of features flashing around the screen very quickly, so there's quite a lot involved. Now, let me just switch over to Hayden as well. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, sorry. Moving on to this next one. This is just like the coolest chat app. I've had a little bit of a preview of some of the stuff that's going on, but the work done here to make it happen and the customization of widgets, the creation of custom widgets is pretty cool too. Hopefully there's some great learnings out of this video.
Hey, my name's Hayden, and for the last couple of years I have been working on a chat app called Bounce, and I've been using Fyne to write the UI. So I want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the custom widgets I've been working on and other things I've come across, etc. So let's get into it. This is what the user interface looks like. It's like most other chat applications. On the left you can select your threads, which are groups or direct messages, and then in the right there you can see your chat history. And that's the first widget that I want to talk about, right here. So this is a fork of widget.list that I call chat history, and it's the place where you can scroll through all of the history, so messages, status changes, stuff like that. There's a few things I've removed from widget.list, so the selection, hovering, the separators, stuff like that. But the most important change I made is to automatically set the item heights. So widget.list allows you to set different heights for items manually, and in my widget, when you add items, they have their height set. And when you go to refresh items as you're scrolling around, it sets their height. This was a bit tricky. In order for scrolling to be smooth, I found that the heights have to be set for every item in the entire list. And what that means is when starting up the application, you have to compute the height of everything that's going to be put in the list, which is very expensive, time-consuming. So what I'm doing for now is just caching all of the heights into a really simple structure on disk, and that is totally snappy. So when I start up the application, it unloads that and everything's just in there. But in the future, what I would like to do is find a way to keep scrolling smooth and discover the heights sort of as I get close to scrolling to the widgets that are in the list. And Right now, I haven't found a way to do that. Things are still a little jumpy. I think it can be done. The cost of that would be that the scroll bar size wouldn't always be perfectly accurate, but that's fine. The other thing I did in this chat history widget is I check when the offset is updated, when a scroll occurs. I check if a widget is fully visible for the first time, and then I'm able to fire a callback from there so I can tell if something has been read. And this is how I do read receipts. The chat bubbles are another important custom widget. Here you can see one where there is both text and images and also files, or a file. And this is cool. A lot of work went into setting this up right. The images, as you can see, are pretty compressed, and I do that for performance reasons. But when you click on them, it opens like a full-size image viewer, and you can scroll through. I haven't gotten gestures yet, but you can click on the left and right. And when you go to add files, there's another custom widget for that. I call it a pending message attachment. You can see at the bottom, I've added a couple images in a file, and you can remove them to their size. If there's a lot of them, you can scroll, etc. So that's cool. Another part of these chat bubbles is what I call merge mode. So if the same author has written a bunch of messages around the same time, you don't need to put the timestamp and disappearing icon, etc., on every single bubble. So you put the name only on the top for the incoming ones, and then you put the sort of decoration icons only on the bottom one. I wrote here, merge mode makes things easy. It does not. That was not the easiest thing, but it does make them easier to read. Last thing I want to call out, it's a nice little piece of polish here, is you can see those status icons will sort of scoot up if the line wrapping allows for extra space there. So you can see in that top example it doesn't, and the icons are on a new line, and in the example below that, it's wrapped in a way such that there's a little room, and so it scoots them up. So for this, I had to use measure text to measure each word with the white space after it, and then as I wrap, I am able to measure how much space there is. And it was a little touchy to get that right, but I think those little pieces of polish make things feel a lot better. Works on mobile. Here are some screenshots from Android. There was a lot I had to do to change some of the flows here. So there's a lot of current device is mobile checks, and then I do things a little differently. So viewing all of the threads is one screen, and then when you click on a thread, the whole main window gets replaced with the thread history, and there's a back button that doesn't exist on desktop. So things like that. But it works really well. When I originally started, Android performance was unusable. It was terribly laggy, and some of that was my fault. Some of that was a lack of optimization in Fyne. But especially recently, the Android performance has gotten a lot better, and that's really motivating to see. So that's that. Let's see. The 2.6 migration was a bit rough, and I'm not totally done with it. I'm still using a lot of do and wait. There's a few reasons for that. There are times in my application where I want to do two things in a row. For example, I want to display a new message, but then I also want to update the icons and mark it as delivered, sometimes back to back. And both of those are calls that need to be wrapped in Fyne.do, but the second one depends on the first one, and I'd have to change my API around a lot between the user interface code and the actual chat code to be able to do those at the same time. So there have been a lot of places where do and wait has come in handy, and I know that's not ideal. There's some places where I've also mixed in the actual widget stuff with my state, and in hindsight, I would have done things a little different there. But it's tough because, for example, when I'm doing the height check stuff to know if I should be auto scrolling or if something's been read or things like that. There's times where I do want to sort of get feedback from Fyne about how things are set up and displayed to know what I'm doing with state, and a lot of that has involved blocking stuff. So I'm still kind of in the weeds on this one. Everything's working great. But there's a lot of do and wait calls that probably, if things set up a little different, could be Fyne.do calls. So that is something that I want to do in the future. The last thing I'll mention with my time here is that I have been working on camera support for Android. And I did get the intent technique, so media store capture image intent takes you to the camera app and back. I got that working pretty cleanly. However, that does not work on all devices. It's a very out-of-date way to do things in Android, and it just wasn't really viable to get that merged into Fyne. So this photo here is a success I've had building with the Android X, Camera X toolkit, which was a bit crazy to get that all built into the DeX, but it worked. I was able to take a photo, and you can see that here. And that photo is actually of the logcat output of the application, which I'm using Camera X. So there's a lot between here and getting something merged in, but I hope to keep working on this. And that is about it for me. So thanks, Andy, and the rest of the Fyne team for putting together this awesome project that has made my work possible. And I look forward to what's next. Thank you.
Awesome, cool. Yeah. Right, amazing, yeah?
Very polished. Yeah.
It's one of these applications where I looked at it's like, oh right, okay, so you've like built this with these bits that we've put together, the application is possible. Wow.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now let me just switch context again. I think that was our last video, which is pretty cool. I'm going to just unplug one or two things to save power, although I believe there's a power cable on its way here. So we should be just grand. Let me bring up some PDF. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think we're just good to go. Let me pop this over here. And yeah, I mean, welcome back up, Simon. If you're ready, would love to hear about putting videos into a Fyne app. You know, just to continue the mind-blowing scenarios.
All right. Yes. Videos in Fyne. A while ago, I actually had a small experimental fun project where I was implementing a chat and on internet radio station application, because they had a web-based thing, and I was just curious how it would look like in Fyne. And what I was using there, they were having support for animated GIFs that could go over the screen and stuff. In that context, I was using not videos, but at least animated graphics within Fyne already. And that worked, but it wasn't super performant. So when I then started having a new client who's working in the transport industry who relies on video or camera signals because they have a driving assistance software, when you go backwards or left or right, there's a controller on the vehicle, and that controller is being read, and then based on that the camera pops up and shows either left, right, or the backward signal. Yeah, so this is what I first needed to figure out if it's doable anyway. So before, similar to Tanguy, I first had to check, can I do this? And I did some very early experimentation, and actually got it working. The project that I ported, that's going to be a different talk, how I ported something from Java to Fyne, but for now, just the video stuff. They were using GStreamer to do that on Java, which is in itself already a really complex piece of software with a lot of components and moving parts, and making that all work turned out more tricky than I expected. Well, maybe I did expect it because it's video, but I didn't know about it. So in the scope of this project, I really had to dive deep and learn all those things, and I probably still don't know everything, got things wrong, and I managed to develop a prototype for my client though, and they're happy, and we're going forward with that in the future, I hope. And here I have the very boiled down example that I also put on the repository, which is, I forgot to add the link actually, but it's right there. So on Codeberg, there you see where the code is. It's not very clean, it's really in a prototypish state so far. with still log codes in it, and it needs to be cleaned up, but this is the starting point that's actually working. And it's working so well. This is actually working. Like I had 4 videos playing at the same time, and they're smooth. This is really smooth. In fact, you see at the top there it's saying frame rate is 25/1, which limits the frame rate of the videos, otherwise they would play too fast, which is part of the complexity of the whole video pipeline thing. But the thing is, it's working like in Fyne, and the way I've achieved that was initially by serializing, like in GStreamer, you can say what the output format is. So I said, oh, they have PNG, and well, yeah, I know Fyne can handle PNG, so obviously that was the first naive way to go. It worked, but it was a bit stuttery. It wasn't really fast enough yet. So, but it was good enough at least, like, okay, with this I can work. And I started then, at a later point, I started looking into the formats, first looking into Go, what image formats are supported. Then we're going through the list, I saw RGBA, and saw that in GStreamer as well, so I put that in the pipelines. Is it? Yeah, there, format is RGBA. So that was compatible, and all I have to do up to that point is then mapping the memory into Go scope, and from there I can just copy it directly into the Go image, and then hand it off to Fyne, and it's actually working. This is not official though. This is really, as I said, experimental state, and at this point I don't know how to bring it forward because it's really heavy with GStreamer. Like from a licensing perspective, would mean that we cannot integrate it like this into Fyne itself. It would have to be something external in order to address the licensing issues. Anyone who used video codecs probably knows that you need to install that separately and so on. So if we could put that in a separate library, maybe we could make it easier. And the other thing is, like I said, with the complexity of the pipelines, I'm working with this, but I'm not an expert at all when it comes to the internals of video stuff. I think it's complex as hell. Yeah, so I don't know how predefined pipelines could look like, or how to address the complexity of that to make it really easy to use. So that's why, like, I still need to collect ideas or whatever, but that's why I give this talk as well, so people who know better maybe can reach out, give me feedback, or give ideas, or try it out, tell me how it fails, and however we're going to find the way forward. I think as a community we can bring it further. And then there's other multimedia parts. This is just video. Like for the driving assistance software, that's just good enough because you just need to see something. You wouldn't hear it anyways, so that's not necessary. But still, the question remains, if we want to make it something official, how would we deal with audio in general? So that's kind of point and where it needs to go. I don't know if there are any questions here. There's a lightning talk. Are lightning talks without questions? I don't know if anyone has one. Let me know. Otherwise, that's it for me. Thanks for this opportunity, because it was a small but exciting aspect of an exciting project that I'm really happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I have so many questions, but I suspect that they're a little bit too technical to ask on the call right now, or on the presentation, and it's a bit lightning, trying to turn it all around, and the quicker we finish and we're on the home straight, the quicker we can get down the road, and the establishment that's going to refresh us later was just on the phone to make sure that we were still coming on, like, yeah, we're getting there as fast as we can. Before we wrapped up on the lightning talks, though, I wanted to just show a couple of quick apps in a bit of a showcase for people who couldn't be here but had something that they have been working on that I wanted to show for them. Yeah. Cheers for some known apps in the community that oh yeah, okay. Just let me bring up my notes. Yeah, so I have a couple of apps here. There's no particular selection process. There was no formal proposal that it gets included. I'll tell you about each one a little bit when I get to it. If you want to know more about the apps available, do go to apps.fyne.io. There are now, I think, 170 open source apps that people have contributed to that repository, and more are coming in. If you've got one that you would like to share, there's a submit button on that website that you should absolutely just tap and put the data in. The first app I wanted to share is, in fact, Supersonic, by Drew, who's one of the contributors to the Fyne project. This app, I think, has been under development for a few years, and it has a level of polish that I am really enjoying. Working with audio is not easy, and yet somehow this application has made it look pretty seamless. So it's connecting to a variety of different backends, and it's showing you the collection of audio that you have. You can tap into any one of them, and it's going to start playing. Nice. And the waveform is being sampled and applied to the UI. You can see information about the track that's playing. And then there's so like all of your metadata and exploration. Lyrics are in here. I also love that there's visualizations are being added. So if you wanted to see a peak meter and I play it again, which is pretty cool. And this is all written in Go using the Fyne toolkit with some custom widgets, much like we saw in some earlier presentations. We had the fun of presenting this application to Russ Cox as he walked past at GopherCon a couple of weeks ago, because he said he was interested in what the toolkit was capable of. And I was like, oh my goodness. So Drew, Russ, Drew, oh my goodness, have a conversation about this amazing app. Thanks, Drew, for this application. The next one that I wanted to show you is an app that I was also using last week. Oops, sorry. Too many screens. Yeah, so this next app is much smaller, but it was also present and causing interest at GopherCon. It is a slideshow app that I've put together that uses Markdown to define the slides. And I could just open the GopherCon 2025 slides that I put together for my lightning talk. And this is doing everything from the raw text on the left using mostly built-in widgets, but it also has the ability to play full screen, which is just displayed on the wrong screen. I don't think I can make it display full screen on this because of the conflict between OBS and the slideshow. But those slides will display full screen and give the rendering of a slideshow, tapping through embedded images, lots of content. And one of the things I like about this is the themability, using vector graphics to the best ability to show it in a really high resolution, whatever the screen, with PDF export as you'd expect for slideshows. So I wanted to include this simply because people were quite interested in that at the presentation a couple of weeks ago. And lastly, I did mention it very briefly, Aptrix is a sponsor. I showed a screenshot, but I thought, by way of showing what's possible with the toolkit, it's actually quite a cool app as well. So I'm actually just going to open an existing project, but you could create a new app. You could ask for an AI to prompt to generate your application. Here, we're editing a calculator, pretty standard app. It's included in one of the repositories that we have. And you can interact with the visuals. I could decide I want to add a hyperlink into the bottom of the UI. It's going to drop it in down there. It's using a grid layout, so it's evenly spaced. If I'm curious about the code that's generated, we can bring them up alongside each other. And so you can actually learn about how the code is created. It links the UI to the code that's being used under the hood. My equals button here is clearly doing more than just being a button on screen. It has some calculation to do. You can see it's running an evaluate function, and if I'm a developer or if I want a little bit more power, I could pop into the source code that makes this happen. I have an evaluate function in the code, so you can jump in and out of the graphical representation. If I'm unsure about any part of it, like this new grid container, I can ask for an AI assistant to explain what's going on at that line of code, and that's possibly not very readable, but it's picking out the code and giving you a description about it. So the flow of AI into the application is becoming more natural and more assistive rather than a prompt that generates an application, because the idea is it's a life cycle of code that grows with your product. And naturally, built on top of all of the technologies in the community, Fyne Cross and a few others, when you're ready to deploy your application, it's possible to one-tap a button, which isn't visible because I've just realized I'm running the free version and it doesn't have the deploy button, but with a subscription you can tap deploy and it sends it out to all different platforms that it understands, which is basically all platforms. If you're interested to learn more, there's a website, there's a free download that you can try out, or just come and chat about it. The reason I particularly like this as an application showing what Fyne can do is that this window here is actually whatever you want it to be. So it could be showing you a live application or simulating a mobile, and that's using some of the capabilities to have one part of the application controlled independently to the other parts of the application. Cool. Well, hopefully those were some really inspiring applications of the different things going on around the community. I wish we could show more, actually, but there is only limited time, and the budget to get more people here to show you their stuff would probably be a little bit too much. So I think with that, I'll probably just move on to a closing couple of slides, and we could do also a Q&A about anything that's come up to date or about the project in general as well. Fantastic. My goodness, we've got to the last presentation of the day. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm excited and motivated by everything that's been, but I'm also starting to feel like I can breathe a little bit again. It's the end of another FyneConf. It sort of both wraps up a year of development, but also sets up the year ahead. So in traditional fashion, I'm going to have to do exactly that and talk about where it is that the project is going and what we're trying to do for the next 12 months. I think it's probably come up in conversation a couple of times already, but it has been quite a long road already. It's been a really enjoyable experience. It's been like taking a road trip with a bunch of friends, but more importantly, that's behind us. It made what we've done today possible. Where we're going is even more exciting, and we're heading to somewhere that seems really important. With 7 years of development and 120, maybe 125 contributors. Unfortunately, I have lost count. I rely on GitHub statistics, which are mostly good, but you know, I don't necessarily check them every morning. With tremendous support, we've achieved something really incredible. I'm excited to talk about where it's going from here. But at the same time, I just thought there's not been a lot of talk about AI across today. And of course, if you just ask anybody at a conference particularly, I was going to say somebody out on the street, maybe not the same, but somebody at a conference is going to say, AI is changing the world, it could do all your coding for you, software engineers are going to be out of a job in no time flat. Well, with everything there's nuance, and I'm not entirely sure I agree with that sentiment. However, the work that we're doing here isn't being replaced by somebody who could just generate code. We're building the technology that's fundamental to making a future like that possible. The AI is generating code for products or helping businesses to create their front ends more quickly. But to address all of the different devices out there, you still need a robust technology. You need to be solving complicated problems. So I think we're in a place that's actually going to be lent on more by these tools going forward rather than less, which is great and terrifying at the same time. as I said, this is a really big community. There's a lot of popularity increase, and we're finding people coming from places that we hadn't talked about before, use cases, product opportunities, and rollouts that we hadn't envisaged, which brings the challenge of what exactly do we focus on? There's so many different things out there. How do you narrow it down? And I think for me, the next phase, we've talked about a lot of features that have been added recently. We've talked about features that are being worked on, and some of those will absolutely be core parts of the next release. But I think also we need to look more at production readiness, the finesse that makes people feel like the applications are ready to use, they fit with the device. We've seen some applications that tremendously meet that already, but it was a lot of hard work for people to get there in some cases. So the more that we can do to make them ready for your audience right out of the gate, but also to help address the wider audience and things that we can do to increase adoption, again, to places that currently aren't able to make use of the technology. I hope it wasn't too much of an ambiguous statement, not an elephant in the room or anything. Accessibility is one of those things that we're going to need to work on. It's been at the top of the list for quite some time, but it requires work to make it possible to then expand and deliver really well on. And that has only recently become possible, that the building blocks are in place. So to make this integrated with all of the system specifics, we're going to need to do exactly that. Connect to the operating system's definition of what accessibility tools need and present. So that is the first thing that we're going to be working on as we go into our next release cycle. Probably delivering for mobile targets and for macOS and Windows initially. We can't do this everywhere all at once because every platform is different, but we know that those are the main platforms that really matter. And first of all, we need to deliver on the basic screen reader support, and that means that the operating system knows what's happening in the app, so that there's basic understanding about what's being presented on the screen, which means that we can actually build on it from there. Probably we'll have to look at the theming to be a little bit better for high contrast accessibility as well. It might be a separate theme with special needs thought of. It might be a refinement of the current theme. But with these steps taken, we can now work with individuals who want to help, who know really well the requirements of accessibility due to their own needs, their own situation, or people that they know. And some of these people are being held back from doing it at the moment because we haven't put in place the fundamentals. So we'll do that and then be working with people going forward to make it a really good setup. And I think because this is a system that's set up with retain mode, we know how your application is functioning and we can pass that on to the operating system. So when we get this delivered, the first version should be pretty good at describing what's going on your screen. So that was the first major thing that I think is important. Additionally, we want to make it easier to help you get applications out to more places. The tooling is all there, but sometimes it's a little bit challenging and perhaps needs documentation to get through the process, which is not ideal. All of this stuff should be completely straightforward. The aim is, in upcoming releases, to have better support for Windows signing so that we don't get flagged ever by virus detectors and things like that, which sadly antivirus doesn't understand Go binaries yet. It's been 15, 16 years, but they still think it looks a bit dodgy. So by signing, we can help people get over that hurdle. Notarization for macOS, again, that means that the operating system inherently trusts the applications much more. I have a working prototype of that for my own code, just working on rolling that out into the open source so that everybody gets that same benefit. And I think it was touched on very briefly in the tooling side of things. Distributions and packaging is challenging, but the more that we can do for the varied platforms that people want to work on, the more that we can help roll out to wider audiences further afield. And I know that the package managers for various different systems are already looking for what Fyne apps are getting out there, and they look, oh right, fantastic, yeah, we'll add that one into the repository, add that one into the repository, because they are now realizing that the application feels more robust than, I don't know, some other applications that have been built in other ways. I can't talk for somebody's decision-making process. And also, there's work I think we can do for iOS. It's complicated partly, or mostly, because of the certification process that Apple has put on the device, which I understand the need for, but we can do more to help people along the way. If you want to build for your Android device, you simply say, stick this app on my Android device, and it will go through all the steps, and it will appear on your phone or tablet. With iOS, it will probably fail because it can't find the signing certificate, or it doesn't think that you're entitled to put your software onto your phone. So we're going to try and make that easier for people along the way as well. Additionally, in this theme of production readiness and getting applications further, there's a whole bunch of work that I've wrapped up in the summary of workflow enhancements that I think should help applications feel more complete or robust. Some of these we've discussed in the past, having a required support on form and updating the validation process as a whole will neaten up a bunch of code. It will make some custom code that's been written no longer necessary, and we can wire up through things like data binding or simple function assignment. Also, related to accessibility, keyboard control becomes essential, whereas before it's sort of been a nice to have, and we kind of knew it could be better, but now it's absolutely critical that we get this right, making it easier to navigate without the use of your mouse. Conversely, we're working with more devices that don't have mice, but have screens, so better touchscreen support. It works really well on mobile devices, but not all touchscreens are on mobile devices. And so desktop being the kind of fallback type, we need to make sure that touchscreen works on those so that the richness of embedded devices or hybrid tablet and so forth devices can get the full benefit as well. Working to integrate better into systems, we're looking at URL handlers so we can do more deep linking. You can launch applications partway into their flow. And we've heard about Android Intents already. Fantastic to see the amount of work going on in that place. And to be able to bring abstractions in to make it easy for people to build on that, again, is the true enabler that helps us to accelerate everybody else's development as well as the library itself. The other thing about real workflow is notifications. At the moment, they're pretty bland. They tell you that a thing has happened. But of course, the world has moved on since we wrote that code. People expect to interact with them, whether it's tapping to deep link or different types of actions that you can take from a notification panel. I think we need to do more work to bring that up to the level that's become expected on some platforms. Not all. We need to work out how to elevate it on platforms that understand how to be elevated, but still function on platforms that are a little bit more rudimentary or where standards are still being discussed. And naturally, we should completely have a rich text entry at some point. It's becoming a fundamental block to some types of applications. It enables really cool things like code editing or inline editing of rich text is just, it's the next big frontier. And I think once a toolkit gets to the point where it could do an editor of rich text, it's proved that everything is in place. So we'll do that as well, and then everything will be done, you know, all good. Maybe not everything, but yeah, that's going to be a good one to have delivered. I'm nervous. It's a really big one. It's complicated, and I think we pushed it back 2 releases already, but I'm excited to get started on that one. And just so that I'm not talking completely about hypotheticals and things that we know are important and we're going to do, I thought I would just drop a little bit in here about what's actually happening already that you can expect to see pretty soon. There's a new blur primitive in the Canvas package. I teased it on social media a month or 2 back, and I said it will be in 2.7. Turns out it's done, but it's not actually fast enough to say it's ready. So we're holding it back 1 more release, but it's there. You can play with it and think about how it might integrate into your application. Camera and sensor integration. We've heard about cameras, there's complications, but it's being unblocked. Sensors become possible through some of the same enablers as well. And we're looking at the API design at the moment about how that can be integrated really smoothly and to be extended in the future to drop in new sensors, new peripherals really easily in a way that's just going to work on all devices. For example, your mobile might want location, but then does your desktop, which doesn't have a location sensor, not care about location? No, it probably cares. So how do we fall back gracefully when there isn't truly a hardware sensor in a way that your application is going to provide essentially the same functionality, but maybe not in a precise way because it's going to vary based on your hardware. I love that I'm not the first person to say better cross-compilation is going to be important. It's absolutely there. Again, the tooling exists, but it could be easier. I think that that's going to be, well, I mean, it is being done right now. When it comes into the flow, I don't know. It's very interesting to hear that Google is working in this space as well. The Go team is looking at alternatives to some of the C compilation under the hood, which is kind of the thing that makes it complicated. And if they shift to a compiler that's more platform agnostic for the C code, like Zig, then our life gets a bit easier and we don't need to solve all of the same problems. So we'll sort of see how that evolves for a short while and then run at it with the tooling that's available at the time, I think. Another target that functions but could be better is mobile web. It actually relates to the work going on in embedded as well, because the delivery through the web browser doesn't know about the hardware. So it assumes you're on a desktop computer because that's the default. So we need a way to adapt that code to the interactions of a touch device, much like our embedded code is currently working on how do we have touchscreen controls in an environment that doesn't really understand that it is mobile in context. And that's working on an evolution of how the code is shared between different drivers so we can enable more hybrid systems going forward. As you can imagine, that's quite a big refactor. Some of this code was written 7 years ago and needs a little bit of untangling. Which leads to the desktop touchscreen is kind of the other part of that puzzle. Those are all things that are partially underway at the moment, which I thought, oh, cool, you could go and play with them if you want. Honestly, I think the blur is the only one that's almost there, and it's just a performance thing. The others, hopefully they'll land as we go into the next release cycle, which takes me on to the release cycle. Our plan going forward, what does the process of the project look like? I think that the 4 to 6 month between release has been working quite well. 3 releases is great, and 2 is fine, and sometimes releases take longer to mature into readiness than others. 2.6 was a massive one. We worked with a lot of people on how to complex applications migrate through these threading changes. I'm very happy we did, because the safety that we created through the migration process means you can upgrade your app and it's going to function quite acceptably, and then over time make some changes using the Fyne.do, opt into the migration, and it's flying. So that process has been worthwhile, but it did take a little bit longer. And going forward, hopefully there's no big ones, but who knows? So we'll roughly keep that process. And in between, roughly monthly bug fixes seems to be working okay. There was one example a month back, I think, where there may have been an issue upstream with some semi-official Google repository called Tools. If that rings a bell, you know all about it. If it doesn't mean anything to you at all, well done, you escaped it. But shall we just say, it became a bit of a joke in itself at the last Go conference, and we've learned the projects themselves fed back about the process. Technically, no promises were broken, but processes have since been updated so that we can avoid painful points. But amazingly, the Go team responded. They had a fix out in a day, and we had a patch release available, I think, the day after or the day after that. So within a week, an absolutely world-breaking change had been fixed, and there was an update out there, and a lot of people never knew. The 2.7 release is underway. If I'm being completely transparent, some of the things that I've talked about as having been done are in that release, and it's not yet out. But we have the code, the feature freeze. The release candidate comes in a week, and then we'll be testing it thoroughly. And it's early in October, I believe, that the estimated release date will be. So do check out, there's a releases page, get the info there, and test it already, see how it works with your applications and be part of that preparation process. I touched on some of this before. It's going to include arc, polygon, date entry, navigation, so between the canvas, the containers, the widgets, there's a few big headlines there. And the embedded driver drops in there as well, which allows some of the work that we're going to be then progressing into the release afterwards. Release H comes after that. I don't have a name yet, but we expect it's going to be v2.8.0, so that begins our 2.8 life cycle. It should drop early next year. We're not entirely certain what it's going to comprise, but it should include accessibility and the validation and required functionality that I've been talking about earlier. Those are our top level priorities. There'll be a lot more, and unless we discover something blocking, they will be in that release early next year. And rather than just thinking about the next release and only the next, we're starting to work on planning for the release after that, which is code, not even code named, code lettered I. I think you can probably see the pattern here. We're going to start working on that so that we can know that what's going into the H release is enabling anything big that we want to achieve in I. And it was part of the discussion this morning, I think, that we had some really good ideas about what big picture things are coming down the road and how we can be better on top of planning for bigger releases and getting us further down that road. Really stretching the metaphor there, sorry. However, please do be part of this project and help us out in some way. If you're not already part of the community, you'll not know that they're just like an amazing bunch of people, but you can find folk from Fyne and the Go ecosystem on Slack, Discord, Matrix, Twitter, X, Mastodon. I think we have an email address, and Reddit seems to work quite well, actually. There's a really good group of people discussing projects and techniques all over the web. If reading about how you could do things is your jive, docs.fyne.io is a place where you can find all of our documentations, examples, and tutorials. If video is more your thing, there's an official channel on YouTube. There's also unofficial channels. There's a whole lot of people creating a lot of content, and there's a good chance that if you're trying to do something and you're not sure, there's actually an example for that specific thing. So do check it out. There's so much material being created now. We're always looking for people to contribute more, whether it's coding, testing, designing, doing documentation. It's incredible, actually. Contributions can come from nowhere. Sometimes it's just a person coming along, learning, enjoying the community, and answering questions, although they're not writing code at this point in time. They just like what's going on and want to be supportive. So that's fantastic. All of our planning, everything that needs to be addressed or that we're thinking about is up on the GitHub project in the Fyne repository. You can track releases, milestones, everything, including planning discussions. And there's a lot of other repositories under that organization for the documentation website for the example repositories. Of course, do spread the word. Anybody that you bump into, sometimes I walk down the street and I'm like, that's a software engineer. You need to be working on, are you building apps? Get on Fyne, it's really fantastic. Okay, I don't literally do that, but honestly, I did in San Francisco. They're all building stuff, and you're just like, nah, you're thinking about an app problem, aren't you? All right, I got the solution for you. But more seriously, there's so many ways. I mentioned the apps listing before. It's linked right there. Pop your app up there, or go and have a look and see if there's a gap. We're looking for help with distributions. That's people in Linux package managers or Chocolatey or whatever the latest thing on Windows is, to have the applications get out there further so people see it, understand the capability, and then want to do something themselves. And also be part of the ever-growing community. Just a nice place to be. However, of course, the big one also is please do consider sponsoring the project or finding somebody that would be interested in sponsoring the project. The reality of this is, despite the many wonderful people that sponsor the project, meeting in person is an expensive thing to do, and next year probably won't be possible unless we find a new sponsor. Numbers are down a little bit on where they were, and unfortunately it's a tough time to be putting conferences and events together anyway. So what next year looks like is up in the air right now. I would normally say we'll see you at this location in 12 months' time. Right now, I can't. I want to say put us in touch with some sponsors. We would love to host an event in person. There's a potential conversation about doing something in New York. We'll see if that pans out. But equally, without a bit of support, probably will be a very different type of event. That seems like a bit of a downer. Didn't mean to. What a tremendous amount of stuff we've covered today. I'm really excited to be here. I'm so glad that all of you are here. Hello and goodbye to everybody online. I hope you've had good chat as well. And I really can't think of anything else to say. I've talked for far too long today, but it's been great to chat with you. Thanks so much, and see you next time. Thanks, Slide. Oh, with the questions. Hello, questions.
There's lots of love online for all the apps you showed.
Oh,
Like
cool.
everyone's saying, amazing, amazing. We're all changing our music app. Those visualizations are awesome.
Yeah.
I'm loving the sensor stuff you just talked about. I've got loads of ideas for apps. And Hayden is online with the chat app, so big shout out to him. That it's really cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely fantastic.
We need a link. The chat app is amazing.
The chat app is fantastic. I've been helping him with a couple of bugs here and there, but realistically, I think only, as he said in the presentation, only recently did mobile get good enough to really present to potential customers. But that's referencing not the latest release, because the latest release is coming now, and most of the optimizations and performance enhancements that I've talked about are in the release that's in progress right now. So I think we're about that far short of really wowing a few people about how much more native it can feel, or from a speed point of view. But at the same time, I think they, like anybody else, is nervous about sharing their project too early because they want it to be perfect. So just nudge them and go, I'll help you test. Was there anything else folk were looking to feedback on? No?
That was all in chat.
That's fantastic. So we have the opportunity for a little bit of chat, Q&A. If we leave the web open for maybe just another 5 minutes, I'll leave the camera on in case something comes up. We'll do just answer anything that comes from them. But also happy to chat through anything, any questions in the room, or we could sit down and talk a little bit about code. We have half an hour left in the room. No, we don't. Oh, is that the time?
Time flies. Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave web on just for 2 more minutes, and then we'll have to get out, unfortunately.
I'll ask if there's any questions online.
Thank you so much. It feels like, I think most of the team is going to go to the social, so we can do questions there if anybody would like to join us. And if that's the case, I must have talked a little bit more than I thought there, my apologies, but our venue for the next...
Eli wants to know where the name Fyne came from.
Okay. So I suppose there's a short answer and a long answer. The short one is nowhere in particular. It's just a good Scottish word that was short and had a domain name available. The slightly longer one is that my background before coming to this was previous toolkits. And every toolkit has a letter. The first letter is usually associated with it, whether it's G or QT or E. And I'd previously been working on Enlightenment, which was E. So naturally, the next one made sense to be F, just like the C language came from B, and there's a D that's trying to do better. Honestly, it was just a combination of short domain, that particular first letter made sense, there's something about it that's quite nice, and it had a sort of a Scottish connotation. There is, I don't think it was mentioned in the slide, but conversation earlier today, there is a Loch Fyne. It's beautiful up on the west coast of Scotland. You should go there, and there's a fantastic brewery and also an excellent oyster restaurant. So it is both meaningful and yet not. Cool. As I was previously saying, 56 North is our venue. We'll probably just walk there. I just need to pack a few things up. It is just down this road on the left, like 2.5 minutes. But if we go as a group, that's fine. They're expecting us now, and Aptrix is just going to open a tab, and we'll have a nice evening. So, it's not. I wasn't able to organise drinks on the table and help yourself, but we'll just go there and order, whatever, and have a bit of chat. It looks to me like there's some food that we might need to take. If you want any of it, grab it. There's some fruit, biscuits, and cans. Just take what you want. Anything that's left there will probably be discarded, sadly. There's no program for getting unused food out to those who could use it. Just don't go to the place that we're going to have a drink and try to eat it because it's a restaurant and they'll probably kick us out. Amazing. I'm going to shut the stream. Thanks everybody for being here. Lovely to talk to you, and have a fantastic weekend.